Welcome into another edition of Connor's Takes. We are 8 days away from the NFL draft on night of recording. When this drops tomorrow on Thursday, we will be officially 1 week away from the NFL draft. And there's nothing like the NFL draft if you're in Bill circles right now. It's overhyping, and then there's underhyping. There is manifesting over one position, and then here comes another person saying we should draft this person at 28 and we should not trade up, and then every person that's wanting a receiver first round goes attack that person who decided to trade up for a defensive player or takes a defensive player at 28. Everything is set up for a juicy, spicy draft night on the 25th when we get there, when we're 7 days away.
It's a very long 7 days. It's a very long week. And you know what? I think
Very.
everybody at this point is tired of the draft discourse and just wants to get the draft here already
Yeah.
because there's so many
We're at
differing
that point
opinions.
where you're going through Twitter and you're like, people are saying, can we just stop with the mock draft posting? And just
Never. I know who this is in
never.
reference to, and never is all I got to say. You're just the fun police if you want to hold up the mock drafts at this point because here's the thing, right? The Bills fan base, Bills Mafia has been cooking with draft picks, draft discussion, just everything lately. You don't really see that in a lot of other fan bases.
No.
All the Dolphin
Mock drafts.
circles of people I know, they don't really care. They're like, whatever happens, happens, bro. We just want somebody. You don't really see them making too many mock drafts. You don't really see them talking about much more than, hey, maybe they could do this, or hey, maybe they could do that.
Mhm.
It's not a whole determined spiel, unlike what Bills Mafia has done lately. They have been absolutely on fire with the mock drafts, and we love it. I love it.
Yeah, we have 4 of them to show you today.
Oh
So
yeah, I've been cooking. I've been cooking lately. Some of you will think I'm stupid. Some of you think I'm insane, but just trust me. Just trust me on this one. Just wait. Just wait until you see some of
let's
these.
let's start with one. We're going to discuss now about one player that's at the wide receiver position, and this kind of goes into the second topic of the night. When we get there, it's underrated draft players, but we're going to focus on one player for right now that hints to what an article that you wrote just a few days ago about one Florida State player that, who
My
is, I
boy.
believe, 6'7". He's a
Mhm,
wide receiver in a tight end's body.
mhm,
And when you get to the red zone, you have Josh Allen throwing to this player. It's probably automatic touchdown.
mhm.
It's Johnny Wilson. Connor,
Oh, man.
explain kind of like the Johnny Wilson. Explain again, maybe to the people that don't know who haven't heard who Johnny Wilson is. Who is Johnny Wilson, and maybe what's something that he could bring to the Buffalo Bills? Discuss that just a little bit, and then we can maybe discuss possible teams and that he can go to, and possible teams that we kind of don't want him to go to.
So, yeah, you were right. I did write an article on Johnny Wilson the other day. It's still out there if you ever want to read it. The thing about Johnny Wilson that most people think about is he drops the ball a lot. He does have a really high drop rate. And of course, that's concerning. But at the end of the day, all he's got to do is just hit the jugs more often than not. Just stay over
Hmm.
at the practice facility. Just keep hitting the jugs to get them hands developed because you can develop hands. I
You
mean, you
can.
can develop hands with enough practice. And once he develops the consistent hands, which he will if he goes to a team that is going to ensure that, he gets the training in, it's over.
Oh yeah.
Because yes, he is a 6'7", 235-pound freak at wide receiver who has said multiple times in interviews that he is not going to transition to tight end for anybody. He will be playing wide receiver no matter where he goes. So his pick range, is in the third round, late third, maybe early fourth. I've seen the latest, past 100. I've seen him drafted to the Commanders at 100, which would be an incredible steal for the Commanders, especially
Oh
with,
yeah.
whoever their first round quarterback is, whether it's Drake May or Jaden Daniels or even JJ
One
McCarthy.
UNC quarterback to another.
Yep. But it's the thing about Johnny with concern to the Bills offense is, like I said a second ago, Johnny Wilson is 6'7", 235 pounds. He is
Mhm.
taller than both Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid and would be playing at the wide receiver position. So you basically have a triple tight end set if you think about it. So hypothetically, here's the scenario that I wanted to pose, and it involves the playoffs against the dreaded Chiefs. It's late fourth quarter. You need a touchdown to win the game.
Mhm.
You have Johnny Wilson, but as we'll discuss later tonight in some of my mock drafts, you also have Romo Dunze. So you have Romo Dunze, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, and Johnny Wilson as your four wide receivers on the field. You have Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox as the tight end set, and you have to score a touchdown to win the game and go to the Super Bowl, right? So
Oh
you're following
man.
right now, Paul. It's a very stressful situation. Everybody's clenched, they're nervous, sweating bullets, heart rate's over 200. So here is what happens.
Mhm.
Josh Allen the ball is snapped. Josh Allen takes it, gets
Yep.
back, maybe evades a sack or two.
Mhm.
And the play that's called by Joe Brady, you have Odunze, Shakir, and Samuel on one side, and you've got Johnny Wilson all by himself on the other. The first three maybe run verticals, almost like a Hail Mary style play, because Allen's got the arm. We all know that. The three
Exactly.
run verticals, Johnny runs maybe a little bit of a slant. One of Johnny's greatest strengths is getting open because people don't expect a 6'7", 235-pound guy to move very swiftly. But Johnny can move pretty swiftly for a big guy. So Johnny would be able to break ankles basically. As soon as he makes that cut to the right, Allen throws him the ball because he's open. Wilson gets the ball at maybe the 20 while everybody else is focused on Odunze, Samuel, Shakir, Kincaid, while they're all basically at the goal line. Wilson gets the ball at like the 20, and he uses it, one of his second greatest strengths, receiving after catch, to run it right in for a touchdown because you aren't tackling a 6'7", 235-pound man very easily. And
No.
a lot of college quarterbacks and safeties really struggled with getting Johnny Wilson down. So that's the hypothetical. That's one of them, I should say. Johnny Wilson scores for us off of a very lovely 25-yard catch, off of a very lovely catch to take it to the house and get the Bills to the Super Bowl. That's one hypothetical. There is another one where Johnny Wilson just mosses people because that's one of his other incredible strengths. And that's the fact
Mhm.
that because he's so big, his wingspan is so large that you could practically overthrow him the ball, underthrow him the ball, and he'll still catch it. Like he could just reach out and snag a ball out of thin air. We
He
saw
would
it.
be that late DPI type guy. If you need like say at your own 25 and you just want to say, "Hey, chuck it deep, Josh," and just so we can get a DPI, he's the guy that you're going to chuck the ball to at 6'7" to try to gain a DPI so you can gain a free 30 yards.
It's not just that. It's also the fact that Johnny could probably still catch the ball with how big his arms are. And if you want my personal opinion on the drops, I feel like half the time he's trying to catch these balls that are kind of that Travis maybe underthrew or overthrew a little bit. and he's trying to really reach out for the ball and just can't quite get it because he's at the very max end of his wingspan. So that's the thing about a few that's my take on the drops bit, is because he's probably trying to reach out for a few of these a little too much, and he just drops it because he's like trying to catch it with his fingertips almost. So Johnny Wilson is a guy that is honestly way lower on most people's draft boards than I would expect him to be. Just from watching him at FSU, I feel like he is a stud in the making and that he is an absolute steal if you can get him anywhere in the 70s. Like, we'll discuss it later when we pull up the mock drafts I managed to get. Johnny would bring an element to anyone's offense that is almost unmatched because it's a big guy playing wide receiver. What big guys do you know in the NFL right now that play wide receiver and are pretty good at it? And I mean big guys. I mean, talking almost tight end size, taller than tight end sized guys.
Not
Name one
many.
off the top of your head. Name a guy off the top of your head, and you'll find that it's either, an average size player or a little bit on the smaller end that's all about speed, like Tyreek Hill, for instance. I'm not going to
Mhm.
compare Johnny Wilson to Tyreek Hill, obviously, two very different players with two very different body compositions. Tyreek's all speed. Johnny really isn't so much speed as he is just being able to catch the ball in the contested catch situations. You could double team him, triple team him, whatever. He will come up with the ball if you throw it to him properly. And it's not like, we're Miami and you have to worry about underthrowing Johnny, and that's when the drop issue comes back, which I did write about that in my article on Johnny. Is in terms of best team fits, and I know you wanted to talk about that too, Paul.
Oh yeah.
Around that range, I do not believe the Dolphins have a solid pick in that 70-80 range. Let me see,
Yeah, they
because
don't.
okay, they don't. So they
No.
would have to trade into the 70s to low 90s, maybe 100 to have a
The
chance at
closest
Johnny
pick to
Wilson.
70 would be their second round pick at 55. After that,
They don't
it
pick
goes
again
straight to
till
the fifth.
158. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's very unlikely that the Dolphins would be able to get Johnny Wilson. But the bigger issue is that the Kansas City Chiefs have a pick right around that range. And if they got Johnny Wilson, it's over. It's
Game
absolutely
over.
over. You have Mahomes throwing to another 6'7" freak. I mean,
Give him the three-peat.
let me
Just kidding.
also make this comparison. Johnny Wilson is taller than Travis Kelsey. Travis Kelsey is 6'5". Johnny Wilson is taller. So imagine that on that offense. A
2
6'5"
tight
gigantic.
ends.
Yes, and one of them is the best tight end in the game, arguably, in Travis Kelsey. So all that time trying to stop Travis Kelsey, and there's a taller guy on the other side of the field at Johnny Wilson. And then of course Andy Reid would absolutely keep him in the practice field a lot more often on the jugs machine to work on those hands. And Mahomes wouldn't really be in many positions where he'd underthrow him or overthrow him to where Johnny really has to reach for the ball to where he drops it because he's at the very end of his wingspan and trying to catch the ball. So it's like it's kind of over for all of us if Johnny Wilson goes to the Chiefs. I haven't seen many mocks where he does go to the Chiefs, but it's
Where would you say his most mock team is?
Washington. I've
Okay.
seen Washington a few times. Actually, more times often than not, I've seen Washington, which would be really beneficial for them, considering, you're pairing Johnny Wilson, a huge guy, on a team with, let me actually double check something. Commanders tight end depth chart, because I don't even know who their
I
tight
know
ends
Logan
are.
Thomas is I know that Logan Thomas is a tight end, but I think he switched over to wide receiver mid-year.
Oh no, I
I think
forgot.
if I can remember.
I think they signed Zach Ertz actually.
Well, I mean, Zach Ertz is what? He's on the older end. He's probably not going to give you as much as a Johnny
Or
Wilson
no,
would
did
give
they?
you.
Oh, I mean, yeah, exactly. Okay, no, actually, I don't see him. Interesting. I don't know if they did or didn't. Oh, that was 2023. Hang on. Let me look. Let me check again. No, no, he's there. I see him.
He's there.
Yeah, I see him. Yeah, Zach Ertz. So you have Johnny Wilson on a team with Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz. I mean, he's a great tight end. Do not get me wrong. He's the same height as Travis Kelsey. He's 6'5". Johnny Wilson is taller. So automatically you've got a guy that's even taller um, with a guy like Zach Ertz with a rookie quarterback in either Jaden Daniels or Drake May, hopefully not JJ McCarthy that high, throwing him the ball. That's a huge benefit to a guy, just fresh out of college going as the second
Right.
overall pick, especially because he'll still have Terry McLaurin too. That's huge.
Oh, scary Terry.
Oh yeah, I mean that they could be sneaky good if they were to get Johnny Wilson in the third round, you know, third, fourth round. That would be insane for them. That's where I've seen him go a lot. I've also seen him, I believe the Chargers have a pick around that range. So I wouldn't put it past the Chargers maybe to consider him because obviously they could draft Brock Bowers at 5. They
Oh,
could
they
draft
certainly can.
They could draft Malik Neighbors at 5. I mean, they could
They
easily
sure
do what
can.
they could do what the Bills should do, which we'll get into later, and double dip at wide receiver. But it's questionable, obviously, because the Chargers have a lot more holes than just wide receiver and tight end.
They're the team that probably has the most holes, you could probably say, in the AFC West. I mean, there's also uh the Vegas Raiders, and
Mhm.
they in their rebuild in Vegas, but then there's the Chargers who kind of going through their own mini-ish rebuild with Justin Herbert. I mean, if you look at Johnny Wilson, I think Johnny Wilson, he seems like the perfect isolation receiver. That somebody that you throw him in the Bills offense. The Bills tried that with Kelvin Benjamin years ago when he
Mhm.
was here for a year, that isolation big body receiver. Just never worked. You give Josh Allen a big isolation 6'7" receiver, I think he's automatically, depending on what they do in the first round, he's probably automatically your one, automatically. Like, because Josh Allen would know he could rely on that 6'7" dude. He could throw it anywhere, left, right, up, down, and
Mhm.
you can't say it's a guaranteed catch, but there's a good chance that Johnny Wilson is making a catch or at least
Mm.
attempting to make a play. And then when he comes down with it, he's either shredding the receiver or he's going to gain an extra five,
Mhm.
6 yards or even more.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
something that the Bills, you could say, on their active roster, they don't have that. They don't
Mhm.
they have the guy that can catch it in short space and make it big, make a big play out of a smaller play, but they don't got that guy where you can say, "Let's throw it 20 yards down the field, down the sideline or up the middle," and there's guys around them, and then he's making a 20-yard play into a 50-yard play instead of a guy that's catching the ball 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage, breaking free, making it 15.
Mhm. I love it too, Paul. I just see it forming in your mind with everything you're saying about Johnny. You're slowly turning into the ones like me that want the Bills to get Johnny Wilson at all costs in the third round. You're turning into that kind of person now, and I love it. I was able to convince Jenna; she's fully on board with it,
I think
and
because it makes sense based off the Bills' draft strategy. if you
Mhm.
look at the Bills draft strategy, it's in my mind, it's wide receiver round 1. I mean, if you wanna trade up, fine. You just wide receiver at all costs in round 1. Then you say if you
Is
stay at
it
28, you're getting we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But then you go maybe round 2, you're getting your defensive player, whether it's the defensive tackle, defensive, end, or you're going to get that, safety in round 2, and then your next pick, which would either you trade up into the 3rd round to get somebody, or you stay in the 4th round and get somebody, it's probably back to the offensive side of the ball, and that would indicate that's your second double dip at wide receiver before you start adding the depth players around the team on defense and on offensive line. And we'll talk about underrated players, possibly running back when we get to that underrated section of tonight's show.
Oh, yeah. And another few I have articles cooking for because they'd be my guys, my FSU guys.
Johnny Wilson just probably, I mean, in any offense, when you have a 6'7" receiver, normally that 6'7" receiver is the number one. Like, they're
You
not
would
gonna
think.
put a 6'7" receiver and him just to be that 3rd guy on your depth chart, and he only gets 25 receptions.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, the
there would be
stat line
no
would be
way.
great.
That would be an absolute borderline misuse of Johnny Wilson's talent.
Mhm.
But he could always be that sneaky, sneaky option. That's the thing too. You don't want to put him that high on the chart because then defense will start trying to zone in on this guy like he's another tight
True.
end. And the minute they do, that's going to free up your actual tight end and Dalton Kincaid to just make noise. And then if
It's a
defenses are
mismatch
so
nightmare.
scared of Yep, and if defenses are so scared of Johnny that they try to block him up, remember what I said earlier about that draft with Romo Dudze in it. Bye-bye. He's gone.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe let me make one last pitch to those that might still question me on Johnny Wilson, might still think I'm a little insane. I just want you to put put this in your mind, right? I
Mhm.
want you to just imagine a regular season game. Josh Allen throws the ball up to Johnny Wilson and he absolutely mosses a guy like Sauce Gardner. Just put that image in your head. Big 6'7" Johnny Wilson just clamping Sauce Gardner. And you know what? If that still doesn't work, Jalen Ramsey, put that in your head too. Just imagine Johnny Wilson in a Bills uniform coming right down with the ball on Jalen Ramsey's head. Then imagine it with Sauce Gardner's head. Then imagine it with
Oh, wow.
Christian Gonzalez's head. Just imagine him mossing everybody. Oh, and you know what the best part about it all is? Maybe Johnny will be free to have his college number with the Bills. Want to know what his college number was?
Was it 14?
14.
I got it
Who else
right.
can you think of that wore 14 for the Bills?
Sammy Watkins.
Okay, well, I meant a little more recently, but anyway, I think you know where I was going with this. Our new increasingly deadly threat in the number 14 for the Buffalo Bills that was better than the previous 14 ever would be in a Bills uniform, but Johnny Wilson. Trust the process and somebody get on the phone with Brandon Beane and tell him to get Johnny Wilson at all costs. I know they met with them at the combine.
Mhm.
I hope he sold them because I will sell it to Bean at all costs. If I could beat Bean personally, I would sell him on Johnny Wilson at all costs. I promise.
They met with they met with Keon Coleman for a 30 visit.
Hmm.
They haven't met with Johnny Wilson yet for a 30 visit. More I don't know how many 30 visits a team gets, but if they have any other, thoughts on another 30 visit, wide receiver is by far the 30 most invested out of all of their 30 visits with 6 wide receivers currently listed under their current 30 visits up until to today's recording on the April the 17th. So the next highest Uh, the next highest on their 30 visits is defensive tackle, which is another need of the Buffalo Bills. So it's their 30 visits are aligning towards their two biggest needs of wide receiver and defensive tackle. Let's kind of continue on along the lines of the Johnny Wilson discussion, but with a different twist is underrated players in the NFL draft. Guys, you think could come later that are kind of mocked later in the NFL draft, but could possibly rise and be that late round steal or even possibly the steal of the first round. I got a few for you. I got a couple.
Oh,
I got a couple of players listed on this list based off several different websites talking about several different people. Kind of give you the consensus of what these people are talking about. The top out of everyone that I've saw and talked to, well, not really talked to, just websites, reliable websites, and kind of like my own personal thoughts. One right off the bat is Xavier Leggett. I
mm-hmm.
mean, I was listening to One Bills Live. What was it? Tuesday. It was on Tuesday on the ride home. They were talking about with the athletic about not sorry, Xavier Leggett.
He's on
He's
your mind. It's
actually
happening.
Xavier Leggett. He was actually ranked 17th overall wide receiver on the athletic draft board for this upcoming draft, and that goes maybe right around the third or fourth round. I mean, we're talking about Xavier Leggett in Bill circles, and most other circles are saying Xavier Leggett is a bottom tier first rounder to possibly being a mid second rounder. Is Xavier Leggett really that underrated, or you think there's just somebody that's kind of just not everyone's sold on because of that last year, sprout where he had 5 years to do so at South Carolina.
Hmm. I will be honest. I am going to have to watch a little more Leggett tape myself because I like him as a prospect, but I
Hmm.
haven't really seen enough, you know what I mean, of what he can really do. I've heard that
Hmm.
isn't he like really, really fast? Like a real I mean, not Xavier Worthy level fast, but he's still really fast and is an absolute
6'1",
do what?
but his 40 time. Many people thought he was going to run a higher 40 time, like maybe 4.4, maybe 4.5, but he ran a 4.39 at the combine.
Oh, okay, that's actually pretty good.
So he's
Hmm.
6'1", he's physical, he could play in the outside, and he has that pretty good speed for a guy for a receiver that, even though he did have that last year, sprout, and he had that dominating year with South Carolina, Xavier Leggett, even though he's raw and he had that that the last year wonder thing, it fits the Bills. They need tall. He's not super tall, but he's Debo Samuel types tall.
Oh.
He, you give him, you throw the ball in the open in the middle of the field. He's going to take it he's going to with his speed. He's going to take it maybe a 20-yard catch, and he could possibly take it to the house. That's the speed we're talking about, and with his big frame and physical abilities, he's going to break tackles and he's going to beat people off the line because he's physical and he has 4.39 speed.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm all for getting some speed on the team. I mean, and I've said this before on the live show. If we could
Mhm.
have a wide receiver that's kind of like our version of Jalen Waddle, That would be incredible because obviously I don't think there's another Tyreek Hill like receiver in this draft. Not somebody with that kind of speed. I mean, Tyreek Hill is fast. Jalen Waddle is
Xavier
also
Worthy
really
is
fast.
faster than Tyreek Hill. You look at Xavier Worthy, he's a mix of Jalen Waddle, but he has the Tyreek speed because obviously he ran the fastest 40 in NFL history. So he
Hmm.
has the speed, but he doesn't have the same abilities of what a Tyreek Hill can do. He's more he's more of a straight line Jalen Waddle because he could play on the outside. He's more of an inside receiver, but he's going to be he could bring an outside threat.
Hmm. Now, there I will agree with you. And personally, I'll say it like this. If the Bills stay at 28, there are receivers that I can definitely see them taking that I think would be very good to take. And
Mhm.
I definitely think that Leggett would be a good choice at 28. There's a few that I think would be a really good choice at 28. Now, obviously, there's the whole deal with Adonai Mitchell at 28. And I don't know if you've heard, Paul, but just in case anybody here has not, there was a report that came out today talking about Adonai Mitchell having character issues due to having type 1 diabetes because apparently they were like, "Oh,
Oh,
when his blood sugar gets too low, he becomes a bit of a character problem, but when he's doing fine with it, he's a very upbeat, outstanding type of individual." At that point, you just look at it and then go, "How much of that is really just somebody trying to make Adonai's draft stock fall through the
yeah.
floor?" Like,
I mean, he could have type 1 diabetes, fine. I mean, I don't think that would drop his stock at all. I mean, maybe just a little, but I still think I I heard people talk about Adonai Mitchell and, questioning his character. I don't think Adonai Mitchell's character should be questioned. He's not going to be the diva that
mhm,
Stephon Diggs was. He's not going to be throwing tablets. He's not going to be screaming at people on the sidelines. He's not going to be leaving the game early because he's mad about a loss. He's
mhm,
going to be that silent assassin. Yeah, he might he did have that one incident against Washington when he waved his hands, say, "Hey, feed me the ball." But what did he do after that? Quinn Ewers threw it to him, and they scored a touchdown.
mhm,
I mean, he threw it in the thread, corner of the end zone, double tapped his toes, and he got a touchdown to bring Texas back into the football game against Washington. So that's
mhm,
why I don't think Adonai Mitchell's character issues should be questioned. It's He's a silent assassin. He's not going to write things on his cleats that will indicate him, "Hey, I want actually out of this place." Or he's not going to
mhm.
tweet he doesn't want chocolate chips in his chocolate chip muffin. He's not
Well,
doing that. He's going to be that silent assassin. He might wave his hand and say, "Feed me," but he's going to show you on the next play why you should feed him.
yeah.
He's not going to say, "Feed me," and he's going to disappear 20 seconds later.
I know where you're going with that, but I like I said, yeah, I think that Adonai really would be a solid get at 28
Mhm.
if he's there, which we'll go into mock drafts later. I'm still very much in the camp that the Bills should trade up to get a high impact receiver early, which I feel like there's a lot of people that are because of the Stephon Diggs departure. But at the same time, you can make an argument for a lot of different things in round one. Like you can make an argument for staying put at 28 and taking a guy like Cooper DeJean. I mean, if he's in that range, why not? If your wide receivers are gone, this is a very deep wide receiver class.
Oh,
Don't
yeah,
forget that.
absolutely.
So you could get your wide receiver pretty much anywhere.
Mhm.
anywhere in the later outs, like like Troy Franklin, Javon Baker, Ricky Pearsall. Remember what I said about Johnny Wilson? Another one of the guys in that exact same position.
Oh, yeah. Let's get into those mock drafts as you
Oh,
speak of them,
oh
because
yeah.
there's a couple parallels to these. There's the trade, there is the selection, and then there's the interesting Johnny Wilson type theme through them all, kind of. I mean, so let's get into them. I'm going to share the screen in 2 seconds, and then we will roll with what we going on here. So you look at this first one here, is that the theme of this is basically telling us the Bills should do what? The trade the Bills should make in your mind and explain.
All right, which one did you pull up? Okay, you pulled up
The first one.
this one. So this was what I have been cooking lately. And credit to the guy that gave me the idea. I can't remember exactly what his Twitter handle was, but I know Cover One did they quote tweeted it, and one of their guys was like, "Oh yeah, I don't think you're topping this trade, either of these trades, because both of them happen at the exact same time." So the idea was that you trade up into the top 10 to get Romo Dunze, but you
Mhm.
don't trade away enough to where you're losing capital. And in this
Right.
case, you're trading the ninth overall pick, or you're receiving the ninth overall pick, but you're also receiving a third round pick. You want the Bears to give you that 75th pick and the 2025 sixth. Wind up giving them in the end is 2860. Obviously, our first and our second, and then next year's round one to move up to get Romo Dunze. Now, that's what I think they should do if Odunze is still on the board when it comes to, maybe 7 or 8. Bean should get on the phone at that point with Chicago and be like, "Hey, we'll give you this for all of this, if you know what I mean." And then you move up and
Mhm.
you get Romo Dunze, but you also make it
Mhm.
where you're getting a round 3 pick in return by giving up that first round pick next year. I know that's probably a question mark to a lot of people, but if that first round pick next year happens to be in the 30s because Romo Dunze is just that high impact of a player, I don't think people are going to regret it. Would you regret it, Paul? Sitting there not having a first round pick when it would have been in the 30s, 30 to 31, 32?
Yeah, no. I mean, if you're going from 30 in that 28 to 30 range, I think to go up until to get Roman Dunze, I mean, I think anyone would ask for that. I mean, if you're a Chiefs fan sitting at 32 and you're trading that Roman Dunze trade, I think you're saying, sure. I don't think they would personally care. I mean, there might be that person be like, well, we need the draft picks. But if you go down to the second trade, is that you're acquiring more draft picks
Mhm.
while giving up a depth corner. You're finding
Is
guys
Kyer Elam
within the
really depth,
draft.
though? I think
He was a
everybody in this
old.
fan base, I mean, everybody seems to remember Kyer Elam as the one guy that saved the Bills' playoff hopes against the Dolphins a few years ago. But other than that, has he really done anything? I mean, he's been a healthy scratch a majority of his
Well,
games last year.
you're losing depth. That's I guess kind of the issue is that you have enough depth to scave away an injury. Say Christian Benford or somebody goes down, Kyler Elam is there and he can fit in. But what if say you get two guys that go down at that cornerback spot? That depth is really, really challenged, just like the linebackers was challenged in that Chiefs game, that Chiefs playoff game. You just don't want to run into that in that back to that old place where you could survive without a couple linebackers, and the Bills almost did throughout the entire game. But if you're running with a cornerback that just came off his couch, and then a couple other guys that haven't really had much experience, you're playing with house money, you're playing with fire. But
Hmm.
if you look at this draft, I'm gonna point out a couple of things. You triple
Oh yeah,
dipped at at
triple
safety.
triple dip safety as well. Yeah, it's a very
One
important
of those
position.
guys could be your could be that extra depth at safety. I mean at corner, since you traded away Kyrie Elam. Cole Bishop,
Hmm.
I believe, had some experience at cornerback while he was there, while at Utah. Not as much as
Hmm.
Cooper Jean in Iowa, where he was able to interchange from safety to corner, and it was an easy flip. But Cole Bishop, if you want to convert Cole Bishop to a corner instead of him playing safety, you have Mustafa and you have Taylor, who will both be your next starting safeties for the next few years, and I believe both of them could be that for the Bills. So you take three, you take one with some corner experience, you could shift him from safety to corner, and you still have the other two to give.
Hmm.
Let's go to the next mock
Oh,
draft.
really quickly
Next,
before you move off of this
oh,
one, I know the Bills just have it with Audric Esteen earlier today, I believe. I
they
have
did.
heard very good things about him, and I feel like because the Bills could certainly use depth at the running back position, and
Hmm.
there's plenty of players I think they could easily draft. I've been talking about Isaac Guernandero, I think. I can't pronounce his last name, from Louisville in the later rounds.
Isaac
He
Grenville.
would be a good option. And then obviously the one we just met with today would be another killer option. There are so many good options at the lower rounds for running backs after going through the whole list. It's actually kind of phenomenal. Like it
Oh yeah.
genuinely really is.
Get into the second mock draft here.
Oh
Same
yeah,
theme. You're trading Kyrie Elam, and you traded up for Roman Dunze. What makes this one different than the first one?
well, here's the other thing. So in this one in particular, you can kind of see a theme with my third round pick. It's been Johnny Wilson every time because I've been obviously beating my chest for Johnny Wilson. Wrote a whole article on him, talked about him in the first part of the show. But here's the other thing I thought of too. Around that 36th pick, Peyton Wilson has been on the board every time. A
Hmm.
big old linebacker out of North Carolina State. The Bills really should start to get. I mean, the Bills' whole goal this offseason has been to get younger as a team. At this point, linebacker is your oldest position because of Von Miller. So why not in that area get a high impact linebacker that can eventually take over for Von Miller? So that was my thought process there with Peyton Wilson at 36. And then
Hmm.
obviously Braden Fisk at 40 for the for the interior on the defensive line. That way you've got a nice 1-2 punch that can pretty much be immediate contributors. And I've talked a
Absolutely.
lot about Braden Fisk on the show, you know, him next to Ed Oliver and Groot. Oh my God. That would be disgusting. Braden Fisk improved his draft stock at the combine. I think we can all attest to that after seeing the stuff that he was able to pull off. My God, he was cooking. I actually think 40 is a little low. I'm more amazed he's still there every time I've drafted and Braden Fisk has been available. I think Braden Fisk has the upside to be a late first round pick. maybe really early second round pick, like 32,
Okay.
33 type range. Like that's just how good he is. I mean, that was what made Florida State's defense one of the best in the country because we had the
Sure.
1-2 punch of Braden Fisk and Jared Verse. And Jared Verse
Uh-huh.
has been projected as high as in the top tens. Like I've seen mock drafts where he does go to the Jets at 10. I've seen the Falcons pick him at 8. I mean, there are so many options that you could make for, even Braden Fisk, Jared Verse, all of them. But I think the main thing is in this draft that's different from the others is that I also decided to immediately replace cornerback depth in the draft when I traded Kyer Elam. And you could see that with my pick of Chris Abrams Drain, the cornerback out of Missouri in the 4th round. That was literally my idea to just immediately replace the depth to where you don't have to wait until June 1st when Trey White's money comes off the books. Or and then you go out and you get a free agent cornerback because there's still plenty of them around. In the first mock draft, that was the thinking. In this one, it wasn't. I just went ahead and replaced him immediately. You get younger on the cornerback side, and you get a pretty, 4th rounder. There's room for the ability to be a truly high impact player. And then
Mhm.
in this one, I double dipped at safety, as you can see. I've been hearing a lot of good things about Trey Taylor. I think he's actually a pretty underrated prospect coming out of Air Force. I mean, he's not flying jets. He's playing football. You got a guy that
Yeah.
could basically fly the fighter jet that you see during the flyover for an NFL game. I mean, that's a pretty solid player right there. Let's just be completely honest. And we've been talking all day long about Cole Bishop. You know, getting him is going to be a difficult challenge because I think last I heard, he's on Miami's radar as well. So you will have to play the mind games with Chris Greer to try to jump and get Cole Bishop, but you don't want to reach for him. And that's a key thing too. None of these drafts I've reached for anybody. Like you could
Mhm.
see maybe where there's a little bit of a reach with Zach Zinter. It's a tiny reach, but it's not
The
that
tiny
big of
reach
a
because
reach.
Zach Zinter can go before he can go before 160, and I've seen him fall into the 200s. So he has this interesting maybe 145 to maybe 215 range with Zach Zinter because, he's a Michigan guy. He played at Michigan, but he also, I believe, he was the one. Was he the one who got hurt in the final game of the regular season, or was that
M-
somebody else?
Might have been. I don't remember. I'll have to actually look at that later.
Yeah,
But
I'm not 100% sure, so I'm not gonna say injuries that could be the concern he drops. So Zach Zinter, he has this interesting range. I like Zach Zinter. I think he could be a productive guy for the Buffalo Bills. There's a guy at 140. The guy I want to talk about is the guy at 144, and Will Shipley, who
ooh,
who
yeah.
has been talked about early on in the draft process, and in that talking about Will Shipley has kind of disappeared because he doesn't go until around the 5th round, maybe even later. Will Shipley would be probably another James Cook, but with more athletic and catch ability. I like Will Shipley. I mean, he's a small favorite of mine, like even in before of the draft. You know, he's a guy that you can throw to him and he's going to create plays that maybe a regular running back could play. He's smaller, but think of you could say how I think of Will Shipley, he's a running back in a smaller receiver body because he's able to extend his arms and make catches, even though he's smaller.
Mhm.
You throw the ball a little bit in front of him, he's going to be able to reach out for it, and he's able to s- to, to handle the catch, put it away, put it somewhere where it's safe, and he's able to go forward and skip a few defenders, shift, spin off a defender, and make what a small or negative play turn into something that's bigger, rather than you get James Cook taking a running back screen that's 2 yards behind the line and only getting 5 yards back. Will Shipley will probably get you around the first down marker or find a hole and just burst through it and make it a huge gain.
Mhm.
Let's go into your final Bills mock draft.
Oh,
We
here we
will
go.
share
Here we
that.
go. This one's about to you're about to light the world on fire with this one. Once you share this
And
one,
we also have one more mock draft to share with you to close off the show, is
yeah,
just
bang.
the final discussion about
Yeah, I
around
just
the
lit the world on
NFL.
fire with I just lit the world on fire with this one. Same
But talk
trade
about
every
Tyler
time.
Nubin.
Yeah, I have heard a
Yes,
lot of really good things about Tyler Nubin, but I've also heard some really questionable things about Tyler Nubin. I what was it? His RAS score was really low, like questionably
it was low.
really low.
It
But
was his athletic ability on that RAS scale was in the red, kind of like Cam Kitchens, but I think
ugh,
Tyler Nubin is the
don't even bring
different.
him up.
But what makes Tyler Nubin different than Kitchens in your
He's
mind?
not injury prone for one, and for two, he actually knows how to play the game of football and could cover a guy. But to be fair, Kinchins does have some really explosive plays, but if you put Newbin and Kinchins in the same spot and told me to pick one, I'd tell you you're crazy for trying to think Kinchins is anywhere around 36. Newbin, no, he's around that range. He would be a solid get right here. And for the this abilities that he's shown, I have watched some of the Tyler Newbin tape. He's incredible. Like that would translate really well into the NFL. Like I have a really nice feeling about maybe playing him in the back end. And isn't I believe he's also one of the safeties in this draft that you could practically transition to cornerback and he'd be okay. Maybe, maybe not. I might have been thinking more of a few others. But
My Tyler Nubin insight is low. He's somebody I should probably dive in more into, because the only thing I know about Tyler Nubin is his low RAS score. But if he's the player that I think, based off positive talk about Tyler Nubin, is that, if you look past the RAS score, which everyone should, a RAS score is just the RAS score, and go and watch the tape and decide for yourself, which I haven't yet. But I think Tyler Nubin, based off a few opinions that I've hear around about Tyler Nubin, I mean, I'm open to him, you know, because I'm open to take a safety in the second round.
mhm.
Whether it's Cole Bishop, if Cooper DeJean magically falls out of the first round and he's there, sure, take Cooper DeJean, take Tyler Nubin, take Cole Bishop, Oladipo later in the rounds, or even Mustafa. I'm open to adding more to the safety room
Mhm.
after the first round, unless magically Cooper DeJean magically falls to the Bills at 28,
Oh,
which I
that would be
wouldn't
something
be
else.
mad if the Bills took Cooper DeJean at 28 if he fell. But that's only if he fell to 28, not the Bills trading up. If the Bills traded up for Cooper DeJean, that might be a different reaction. But Tyler Newbin will probably pass for me. Don't know
Mhm.
much about him. I should look more into him. But if he's that good that the Bills should go get him, he gets the pass.
Oh, yeah. Now, ain't that agreeable for sure. Alrighty.
Alright.
We have one final mock draft that I cooked a little while ago. I want to get the opinions on if this is actually bit of a frightening thing for us in Bills Mafia. And I say that because this is a Dolphins mock draft. This involves Chris Greer deciding, you know what? I think our futures are not worth it. I think this team can win now. Let's go actually win now. And they trade all the way from 21 to 12, and Brock Bowers falls right into their lap. Brock Bowers with their first round pick, Rook Orohoro with their second round pick. And they do need the help on the defensive front because, they lost Christian Wilkins. Who knows how healthy Jalen Phillips will be when he comes back? And that would be an interesting pairing, Rook Orohoro with Zach Seiler on the defensive front. But then obviously you've got to replace that defensive line or that offensive line as well because Teron Armstead's getting older. You lost Robert Hunt. You're more than you've lost Connor Williams. So you've got to get those substitutes. And that is exactly what I did here with Javon Foster out of Missouri and then Javian Cohen out of Miami. Both valued relatively well in this draft. And you're only making 4 picks. I mean, you have to pretty much guarantee if you make 4 picks that you hit on all 4 picks.
You have to.
I don't think there's much of a chance that you can miss on a guy like Brock Bowers, truth be told.
You get a
And
Brock Bowers, he's turning into a Travis Kelce. I mean, obviously too early to tell because we're in Bill circles talking about Dalton Kincaid turning into that, but
mhm,
Brock Bowers has almost every ability to turn into a Travis Kelce-esque player because he can block in space. He still needs to block.
mhm,
He needs to learn how to block, run block and things like that, in when he's asked to block. But he will be able to block in passing and down the field, get down the field, and say if it's a spread run play, he will be able to block in that way. But Brock Bowers, you match a linebacker on him in isolation, he's going to catch it and he's just going to just bulldoze whoever is whoever is guarding him one on one. If you guard
mhm.
Brock Bowers even in his rookie year one on one, it's game over. You're going to have to tackle him with at least 6 guys, maybe 4 guys, maybe even more than 6 or 4 or 6 guys just to bring him down. Because even though the college level defense isn't like the NFL college level defense, he's just going to tear the NFL apart in my mind.
Mhm,
He's whoever he goes to, he's going to be the matchup nightmare. It's
mhm.
going to be hard to bring him down. He's great in isolation, and he has this massive wingspan. He can just catch almost every ball thrown to him.
Ain't that the truth? I mean, that would be and adding him to the Dolphins offense, that would just be a nightmare. Would it help
With
them
Mike
against us?
McDaniels calling the
Not
offense.
really. I mean, it wouldn't really help them against us because the Bills would find a way to win every time, but at the
Oh
end of
yeah,
the day, that's still a nightmarish concept because now their only hole on offense in terms of skill positions is plugged. Tyreek Hill,
yeah.
Jalen Waddle as your wide receivers, Raheem Mostert, and Devonta Chan as your running backs, and now you add Brock Bowers to that. Good lord! Only
And you're
thing's going to
giving
hold them
Tua
back is
pass protection,
yeah.
something
How
he
much
hasn't
help does
had.
Tua need? Yeah, yeah. Like how much help now does Tua need? Let's be real.
That's a
But
discussion if they do, that's a discussion later in the offseason if they end up, you know, using a first round pick on a skill
yeah, you
position like tight end, running back, or even wide receiver.
Well,
If
they
they
don't need
decide to
running
go
back.
that route, they maybe just don't trust Tua enough with the weapons they have. But that's
For
a
real. How
discussion
much
later in
help
the
does Tua
offseason.
exactly. I mean, at that point, how much help does Tua need if you draft a guy like Brock Bowers and they still can't get it done? I mean, that's
Yeah.
good lord. That's just a yikes.
Yikes. All right. This was a longer edition of Connor's Takes, but it was a very informative, deep dive, several different, you know, mock drafts, even though they had the same trend, but they gave different value in each mock draft, triple dipping at wide receiver and safety, maybe going linebacker or linebacker after you trade, make those trades, you go defense after the next, for the next few rounds, and you finally get back into the offense side of the draft. It's if it going to be a long week. It's going to be. It's going to be that long week where we're just itching to draft night.
For
So
real.
tune in for Monday on the Undercovers podcast, Monday at 7, as always. We'll
Mhm.
be here with Ben and everyone else getting ready for the draft on Thursday night. Before the draft, we'll announce our winner of our contest that's on our Twitter. Is the whoever is a jersey of whoever the Bills select in the first round.
Fingers crossed it's Romo
Most of us
Dunze.
were hoping it's Roman Dunze, and you walk away happy. It's not the Bills trading up for Cooper DeJean. Cooper
We
DeJean
get
would
him
be
at
a great
28.
prospect, but I would react different if you fell than rather than trading up. If you bear with me, and then on Thursday, on 7:45, 15 minutes before the actual draft starts, we're having a draft watch party. Me and Connor will be here taking you through the entirety of the
Mhm.
first round of the draft, giving you late night
Oh, man.
reactions when we're
Live
super tired and the
reactions.
draft
My
goes
reactions. The ones that
live
get
reactions.
lit
Yeah.
because
And
I
we're
will be
dead tired at
screaming.
11:45 at night and somebody makes a stupid move. Yeah, we're going to give you that late night reaction.
Oh, nah. We're waiting. We're
If the
waiting
Jets
for
make
the
a
Commanders to take JJ McCarthy, number 2 overall. That'll be the day.
we are hoping to get also fan reactions, if you're a fan of a team that wants to come on, give us a shout out. Give us a DM. We'll have you on for a quick draft reaction
Mhm.
right after whoever team picks. We have a few people lined up for different teams. So we hope that they will be on for the draft, give you different perspectives as well. That will be Thursday night at 7:45 live here on the Undercovers YouTube channel and on the Undercovers Twitter channel as well, giving you just live first round reactions and some guests as well throughout the draft.
Mhm.
With that, this officially concludes another episode of Connor's Takes. And with that, go Bills.
Go Bills.